Hi everyone. Till now, it was not possible to configure on the virtual WAN itself an ingress access from the internet to an asset on one of the virtual WAN connected networks. These days, Microsoft is adding the functionality for enabling ingress access. The way it's going to work is associating an SLB to Virtual WAN Hub and creating inbound load balancer rules on the SLB. You can attach one or more IP addresses to the SLB. The IP addresses are going to be floating IPs, which means that the NVA will get traffic with the destination IP address of the public IP that was associated with the SLB. The NVA will need to have a NAT rule that will accept traffic from the internet to the floating IP address on a specific port. The source will need to be translated to be the NVA private IP address, and the destination will need to be translated to the private IP address of the internal asset. Since this feature is still in development, you would not be able to configure it from the console. You will need to use Postman for 2 API calls. The procedure will be to create one or more public IP addresses via the Azure console. Once you have the IP address ready, use Postman to assign the IP address to the SLB. You can find the Postman collection in the post. I have highlighted all the parameters that need to be replaced. For the API authorization, I will use a token. The token will be generated from the Cloud Shell by running the command AZ account get access token. To verify that the process has ended successfully, you will need to use the same URL with an HTTP GET, without the body. You will have to wait about 5 minutes to get a successful message. Once the process ended successfully, you can also check via Azure Console that each one of the IP addresses has been assigned to the SLB. The last step would be to create the load balancer inbound rules. For that, I will use the second API call. I have highlighted all the parameters that will have to be replaced. I will create 2 rules, one for each public IP address. The first rule, for IP1, will listen on ports 80 and 22, and forward the traffic to the NVA on the same ports. The second rule, for IP2, will listen on port 443 and forward the traffic to the NVA on the same port. To verify that the process has ended successfully, you will need to use the same URL, with an HTTP GET, without the body. Another way to verify the applied inbound load balancer rules is to navigate to the NVA tab inside the hub and click on the Manage Configuration. From the settings, click on the Internet Inbound and check the Rules section. The last step will be to create the checkpoint access rules and NAT rules. I will start with the access rule. Rule number 1. From any to floating IP address 1 on ports 80 and 22. Second rule, from any to floating IP address 2 on port 443. In the NAT rules section, I have created 3 rules. The first rule, from all internet to floating IP address IP1 with service HTTP. Translate the source to dynamic object local gateway internal, which is the gateway private IP address with hide NAT. The translated destination will be the internal web server on virtual network spoke 1. I have created 2 additional similar rules for the 2 additional services. I will try to access IP1 over port 80, and I will get to the internal web server. You will see this session in the log. Thank you for watching.